Hello and welcome to Macstaff Live here on YouTube with myself, Martin Crowson, and as ever, I'm joined by the Managing Director of Macstaff, Anthony McCormack. Good morning, Anne.
Hello there. Hi, Martin. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's good to be back on one of these again.
It certainly is, and we're discussing some edgy content today, let's say. The day where you have to go in and resign from your company and hand over that notice letter and then work out a spell of what can be quite awkward notice period before you actually leave the company. So there's a way of doing it and there's a way of not doing it. We'll also then move on to discuss what happens more often than you tend to believe, and that is a counter offer from the company you're thinking of leaving. So again, there are ways to deal with that, and luckily we've got a man who's has plenty of experience in that roles over the last 2 decades, and that's with us today. So let's crack on, Anthony, and let's discuss that resignation first. Cool. I'm sure there's very few people watching this that haven't resigned from some job in their lifetime, and I'm sure there's also very few people that haven't found that quite awkward at the very least. So I guess the first thing to accept when you're doing this is, yes, it could be awkward and it could be emotional, and if you're in the right headspace, that gets you off to a good start, I guess.
Yeah, forewarned is forearmed. It is a tough appointment, but obviously a worthwhile and necessary step on the way into the sunset with your new job and so on. So keep the end in mind. Prepare for that meeting, and it's like hope for the best, prepare for the worst, basically, isn't it? They might, and it depends how good you are, how valued you are in the current job, in a way, as to how it's going to go and the potential for counter offer. They might be surprised, shocked, maybe, if you've kept your kind of professionalism and confidentiality going while you've been considering other options. So they might be angry, they might be upset, disappointed. So try and consider that beforehand. Don't be kind of thrown for a loop. You keep your kind of professional level, and I guess my advice for the appointments is just, to keep it simple, keep it professional, polite, but make sure that they know that it's a firm decision that you've made to move on to something that you think will be a good fit for you.
If people are angry, I guess you need to be prepared to go in with your armour on as well, don't you? And not be sort of meek and mild, but remember the reasons why you're leaving that company and why you're moving to pastures new, and be prepared to not argue your case, but explain why you're doing so. And be prepared the fact that at the end of that conversation, like it or not, it might be a situation where you're taken back into the office, told to get your pen and paper clip and pencil and stapler and marched out the door straight away, because that does happen.
Yeah, that can happen as well, and it's again worth being prepared for that eventuality. You might even have literally kind of cleared your stuff out the week or the day before, and that especially happens in sales capacities, where realistically your kind of work isn't necessarily going to be that useful after the point of resignation through your notice period. So what people call a garden leave comes into play, where you might get 2 weeks or 4 weeks kind of paid to in theory sit in your garden or whatever, or where your position is kind of sensitive, or you've got access to privileged information, or if you've stated that you're going to a direct competitor, then they probably want to take you out of the business straight away, which can can be a win-win, like it's free money, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. And that, if you are staying for your notice period, it's very important to make sure you check that in the terms of your contract as well, isn't it? Because I've heard on many occasions somebody's, expected to be off in a month. They've told their new employer they can join them on, in 28 days' time, going for a meeting, and then their current employer pulls out a 10-year-old contract which actually says they owe 3 months worth of notice, and it can cause all sorts of problems from that point on, isn't it? So again, be prepared.
Yeah, check your contracts before negotiating your acceptance and start date with the new employer. Like you say, there's an element of being able to defend your case, or certainly to stand firm. But I would also say that less is more quite often in that appointment, because if they're going to try and turn you around, change your mind just because it doesn't suit them that you've resigned. They'd prefer you just carry on plugged into your socket at work and, turning the handle, so to speak. If they're going to want to change your minds, they're going to need to know a bit more about what you're going to next. So it's going to be like, where are you going then? Why, why are you why are you leaving? Why aren't you happy and things like that? And, it's just chit chat, but sometimes they'll, if you share too much information, they'll use it against you, to try and change your mind, like, oh, I've not heard good things about that company, or
right.
My mate went there and, only lasted 6 months or whatever. And, sometimes it's sour grapes. So I just personally don't get kind of dragged into, why are you kind of leaving and why are you joining? Just, I'll stick to I've made a firm decision to move on. Thanks for all the opportunities that you've afforded to me here. I'll make sure that I, do a good professional handover. I've brought you my, notice in writing, and I'd expect to be able to move in 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is. It's a tough appointment though. Like when I had to do it, I was not looking forward to it at all. And not only did they obviously, try and talk me out of it, or undermine my decision in the notice appointment, then they spent the next 2 weeks chipping away at trying to get me to change my mind as well. And
really
that's flattering. I guess that's good, but expect a counter offer, especially in this climate.
We'll talk about counter offers later, but it's basically play straight back and be nice then when you go in.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is as well, like, it's tempting to, offload some baggage, isn't it? Or like stick your job and never liked you anyway, or whatever, if you're holding some kind of a grudges. But, sometimes you kind of win the battle and lose the war, don't you? You're much better to keep your professionalism, your reputation intact. And like, as to why as well, it's just kind of psychology. I was reading in one of my many books again recently that people will remember and attach a lot more kind of weight and importance to something that's happened recently rather than something that's happened for a long time, or has been repeated more often. Like, I love my Muppets Christmas Carol. I don't know about you, but that's my kind of signal that it's nearly Christmas and might have a little tear in the eye or whatever. But like Scrooge, like, he's been an idiot like his whole life, has he not? And fair enough, he has an epiphany moment when he's like 60 or 70, is he? And decides to be nice to like Bob Cratchit and everybody else, but like, everybody's forgotten about all the rest, haven't they? And unfortunately, like, the inverse like can apply when handing in your notice. If you've had like 10 years exemplary service and gone the extra mile every week and so on, and then resign and end up having some bad blood in the discussions, or you don't do your full notice period or complete a project or something like that, that's all that is remembered. And that he was here for a while but left under a cloud, can't quite remember what it was, but I've got a negative connotation. Like, you don't want that in your references.
Well, I think it's a good point to remind people to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because it is not just recruitment tips you get on here, but it is references to Scrooge and Christmas carols, which I never thought we'd be discussing here on Macstaff Live. Moving on, it's human nature, I guess, to protect ourselves from difficult situations. So the easiest thing to do in a resignation position would be to email or even text, but I guess face-to-face is always better in the long run.
Yeah, again, from a professionalism point of view, and how you remembered and things like that. Yeah, it's better to do it kind of old school in the safest, most, and it's the correct procedure as well. So what you might do is say to your boss first thing in the morning and need an ASAP confidential meeting with you if possible, and then you'll take your letter and hand in your notice in that meeting, which is hopefully a face-to-face. But the world's changed and there's different remote working scenarios, isn't there? So the alternative to that would be to ideally call or email, alternatively to request a proper appointment where you've both got time and space to have an adult conversation and book that appointment. But do get it done on that day. There's no point in having it drag on, and no doubt, or quite often, the timing of your resignation impacts your notice period, which impacts your start date on your shiny new job. So keep a robust process, do things in the right order, just speak to your direct boss first, or HR if that's the correct thing to do in your organization. Again, avoid the temptation to kind of let it slip to colleagues and things like that, because it comes across as unprofessional if it kind of leaks out from a kind of another source.
And how important is it to make that last month or last 3 months or whatever as professional as possible, and make sure you do a good job during that handover period? Because we've all heard tales of people storming into the boss's office and saying whatever and storming out, and it makes for a good tale down the pub. But I guess in terms of longevity of your career, it's not the best way to approach it.
No, resist that temptation, and the kind of the modern kind of version of that as well, isn't it? Is to like put something on social media and have it go viral. Like you book a brass band to come marching in with you, and then you like rip your shirt open. It's like, I quit, or like you pop the balloon, like the baby reveal, and have the I quit glitter or something. But it's not going to be the best way to be remembered. You just want like a formal professional meeting, and like you say, the notice period, it can be the longest and kind of worst and most awkward kind of period of your kind of working career with that company. But it's important to keep your eye on the ball, and to be polite, professional, helpful. Just get a good handover executed, so that there's less likely that things are going to go wrong or come to light that we're on your kind of job sheet, or on your watch, so to speak, once you've left, because everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, Anthony kind of just kind of walked out the door and left all that like rubbish in the drawer, and like it's coming back to bite me and things like that. So just be thoughtful, I suppose, be kind, and it's a small world. Many people think they can like kick over the table and the lamp on the way out, and then sure enough, like 6 months time, like same boss arrives at new employer, and that's what happens. Like it's a small world, even if it's a fairly large industry sometimes.
So
what goes around comes around, they say, don't they?
And I've heard a couple of those stories myself as well, and they are very, very real. Somebody I once knew pinned his boss up against the wall at a Christmas party because he was leaving a couple of days afterwards, and was like, you've been the worst boss I've ever known. I'm glad to be getting rid of you. Only then 6 months later to have moved jobs himself, and for that very man to then walk in the door as his new boss, who then promptly called him into the office. This in the old days. Promptly called him into the office and said, pack your desk and pack your bags and
really
off you go. Yeah.
So maybe got the last laugh, but we'll see. Like if they're still alive, it could flip round again.
Let's move on to the counter offer scenario. And so you've got worked up, you've handed in your resignation, and your boss looks at it and says, right, well, we'll give you another $5,000 to keep you here. And you were saying earlier that it surprises you how many people are surprised by a counter offer, and they're thrown off their guard by it, but it actually should be something they should probably expect at certain levels of in certain sectors and certain industries, and especially so at the minute with such a skills shortage on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as a professional recruiter, I raise the subject and talk to people about the counter offer quite early in the process. Like realistically, because if you're looking for more money, just ask like for more money, negotiate and put a case forward with your current employer to get what a fair or what compensation level you're after before you start looking, because before you drag everybody into what can be a bit of a circus, really. So there's the preempt the money thing in advance, but definitely if you're going to then go and get a job offer and look to move on, do expect the counter offer. It's a standard reaction that it's presumably going to cause the company some inconvenience. They're not going to be happy, that you're walking out the door if you're, doing an important job, got important projects on the go, and so on. It's going to cost them, time and money to find your replacement. So the quickest,
How
easiest.
much can that cost the company? Have you got any figures about the
Yeah,
ballpark figures about how much that costs?
Yeah, there's different things that you kind of discussed and kind of shared in the recruitment industry. If they're recruiting a new position and paying a recruiter, it might be 5 or even 10 grand, I guess, just for that part. But
right.
the total cost of employee turnover, from one person leaving to another person getting kind of recruited, onboarded, trained and productive, can be like 50 grand plus, like depending on obviously the position and the level, because it's not just the the money on recruiters or advertising and whatnot. It's the time invested by key managers in the organization, and the the time put into interviews, and the money invested into training and onboarding and things like that, and to get an employee set up in all the systems and HR and things like that. So it's an expensive and disruptive thing. The quickest, easiest and quite often cheapest thing for the company to do is to buy off the exiting employee to not bother.
Yeah, and some would call it a bribe.
It might call it a bribe. Yeah, I do, because it's a negative connotation to counter offer in my book. Because I mean, apart from anything else, you've made a commitment to the new employer to kind of resign and join. You'd be obviously breaking that commitment to stay for the counter offer. But from a personal level as well, it's like know your own mind, like leave or don't leave. Like if you get turned around, it's you might end up with a loss of respect in the organization anyway, because they're kind of pulling you like a puppet, aren't they? And the relationship changes then as well. I mean, we might be coming on to that, but if you're going to resign, it's like your romantic partner threatening to walk out, isn't it? It's like there's going to be a changed relationship, a less trust thereafter. So maybe you don't really want that scenario, and it can't be kind of it can't be unlearned or unsaid, can it? Like it'll be taken into account, even if it's subconsciously. Like in future, thoughts of redundancies, promotions. Like if you're trying to pick between two people for getting a promotion, and one's like threatened to leave like a few months ago, and one hasn't, then which one are you going to go for? Likewise with a redundancy, if you've got the choice between making somebody redundant who's already kind of threatened to leave, or somebody who's been a loyal, happy, secure long-termer, like again, which one are you going to go for, sort of thing. So to a certain extent, you've got a target on your back and a shelf life, and kind of worst case scenario, they might be kind of buying you off for the short term in a way. It's like, we can't afford that person to leave now. We need just to get over this hump or get that project completed, and then we'll kind of review it as well anyway. And that position might suddenly become redundant.
How often does that happen in your experience, in terms of somebody walks home from that day with another 5 grand, 7 grand, 10 grand, top of the world, go home, tell the family they had a big pay rise, and then within the next 12 months they're gone because of a restructure, or like you just spoke about, redundancies, or that trust level has gone? How often does it happen?
Yeah, all the time in terms of that kind of medium term scenario. So we reckon that 80% of people who stay for a counter offer will be gone then within a year.
Is that kind of that high?
So yeah, also known, I guess, like it's a recruitment kind of truism, and that's partly because the person may end up being kind of pushed out in some way of the organization later. That doesn't happen like a very high percentage of the time, but I have definitely heard stories. The main reason is that the underlying reasons why the person wanted to leave still remain. Like you can't band-aid over that, can you, with another few grand, if it's too far away, if you don't like your boss, if you're kind of not satisfied with the industry, or you're just burning out, that's going to happen anyway.
And those are the reasons why I suppose that you should always, when you're offered increased terms in that position, say that you like to think about it for a while, if you're not rejecting it straight away, because it's important to then go and revisit the reasons why you were leaving in the first place. All those things you've just reeled off are all very valid reasons why you've reached that decision in the first place. And the extra cash can cloud your judgment.
Yeah, and I suppose to be fair and realistic with it as well, the counter offer, may occasionally be the best thing to do. That's the exception to the rule, I think. But if you do have a heart to heart with your boss, and you fix some, root cause problems and things like that, and you genuinely off on a new trajectory with your current employer, then you could on balance decide that that's the kind of logical and emotional best decision, but just normally not. There's some really good reasons that you've obviously analysed, partly to do with your career in the bigger picture, or partly to do with the job itself at X company versus Y company, and made a good decision to to move on to pastures new. Do have the courage and tenacity to follow that through, and to benefit from the time and effort invested into finding the new job, basically.
Yeah,
don't doubt yourself or second guess it too much.
We're just talking about wrapping it up. We're just talking about go for it and don't fear the unknown, and it's very important, is it, that you do stick to your guns, and you've made that decision in the first place that it's time for a change for whatever reason. Stick to it.
Yeah, have the courage of your convictions, and you're going to get new, better experiences and often better progression by making a move from time to time. So concentrate more on what you're moving to rather than what you're moving away from. Be single-minded and pursue your new career. Move. You're not a tree, as we say in recruitment.
Before we finish, and summarize the things we've spoken about today, summarize the best way to go in and resign, and just summarize again for us the dangers of that accepting that counter offer.
Yeah, so do things in the right order. Get your new position offered contractually, target start date agreed, then plan your resignation, book a proper, ideally face-to-face appointment with your manager, take it in writing to hand that over, because it's not kind of a legal resignation until that point, and agree a professional handover, and work a really good professional notice period, and remember the reasons why you're moving in the first place, to avoid getting kind of dragged into too much debate about counter offer, and make sure that you're remembered in the right light, professional reputation intact, and ready to tackle a new challenge. So it's a difficult process and period, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and I do wish you all the best going through that process to move on to bigger and better things.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks, Ant. A reminder to everybody, if you're interested in the future broadcast we'll be filming, to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you're first to be informed of when upcoming broadcasts will be scheduled. We've got plenty on the YouTube channel discussing various issues of the job hunting and job leaving process. So if you click onto that and have a look around, there's all sorts of topics discussed, from building a good CV, coming across well in an interview, dealing with rejection, etc., etc. It's packed with some fantastic information, and there's also more information in a book that Anthony's written called Job Search, Job Done. Tell us a little bit about that, Ant.
Yeah, forgot all about that, but I've put some really good kind of job search information all in one place, on the basis of obviously 20 odd years recruitment experience. So Job Search, Job Done, available on Amazon. It will take you all the way through, working out whether you indeed should be looking for a new job, right through to CVs and interviews and offers and counters, where we're at today, through to commencing your new position. And I think probably in the next one or two lives we'll be talking about getting ready to start your new job, I think, won't we?
We will. You can find out more about Macstaff and Anthony's business on the address down there, and you can follow us on social media as well. It's on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. So that just leaves me, Martin Croson, say thanks a lot for joining us today. We're back in a couple of weeks with the next chapter in our Macstaff lives. Until then, thanks once again, Anthony, for your time.
All the best. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Speak to you next time.
And thanks to you for joining in. We'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.